Thank you very much for taking out of your occupied schedule to join us today. For this briefing, we would like to start the financial results announcement for fiscal year 2019, the first part. And let me introduce to you the executive officers facing you. Koji Kobayashi, Executive Vice President. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Executive Officer, Masayoshi Shirayanagi. Nice to meet you all. First of all, Shirayanagi will share with you the financial results outline, and after that, we will have Q&A session. At the very outset of the presentation materials distributed to you, the cautionary statement with respect to forward-looking statements is mentioned, so please go through that. So first of all, Shirayanagi is going to share with you the financial results outline. My name is Masayoshi Shirayanagi. Thank you very much for joining us today for the announcement of financial results. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our customers who chose us, as well as our stakeholders who support us. Thank you indeed very much. Our heartfelt gratitude goes to all of you. It is my pleasure to discuss Toyota's financial results for the fiscal year which ended in March 2019. Compared to the previous fiscal year, consolidated vehicle sales increased by 13,000 units to 8,977,000 units. This was a result of solid sales, mainly in Asia. The consolidated financial results for the fiscal year were net revenue of 30,225.6 billion yen, operating income of 2,467.5 billion yen, pre-tax income of 2,285.4 billion yen, and net income of 1,882.8 billion yen. While both net revenue and operating income increased, net income decreased by 611.1 billion yen year-on-year. This is largely due to the specified factors that net income of the same period of the previous fiscal year includes a positive impact of 249.6 billion yen due to the U.S. tax reform, and that net income of the fiscal year that ended in March 2019 includes a negative impact of 293.7 billion yen of unrealized gains and losses on securities due to the market deterioration during such fiscal year. I would like to explain the factors which impacted operating income year-on-year. Firstly, the effect of foreign exchange rates decreased operating income by 50 billion yen due to the depreciation of local currencies in emerging countries. Secondly, cost reduction efforts increased operating income by 80 billion yen as the impact of cost reduction efforts exceeded the increase in raw material costs. Thirdly, marketing efforts increased operating income by 275 billion yen due to improved product mix in North America, Europe, and Asia, as well as improved profitability in financial services. Finally, expenses decreased operating income by 165 billion yen due to an increase of labor costs mainly in Japan, Asia, and North America. As a result, excluding the overall impact of foreign exchange rates, swap valuation gains and losses, and other factors, operating income improved by 190 billion yen year-on-year. Now, I would like to elaborate on operating income for each region from the left-hand side to the right-hand side of the slide. In Japan, vehicle sales decreased by 29,000 units year-on-year to 2,226,000 units due to the diminished effects of new models. Operating income was up 28.6 billion yen year-on-year to 1,690.4 billion yen, mainly as a result of cost reduction efforts and marketing efforts. In North America, vehicle sales were down 61,000 units year-on-year to 2,745,000 units as a result of a temporary impact due to the preparation for model switchovers, such as the Corolla and RAV4. Operating income was 144.1 billion yen, up 11.9 billion yen compared to the previous fiscal year. As for sales incentives, we were controlling them more adequately by efficiently allocating them to key models, and the total amount of sales incentives decreased compared to the previous fiscal year. In Europe, vehicle sales grew by 26,000 units year-on-year to 994,000 units, driven by hybrid vehicles models such as the C-HR. Operating income was up 44 billion yen year-on-year to 121.1 billion yen. This was mainly due to marketing efforts and a reduction in expenses. In Asia, vehicle sales were up 141,000 units year-on-year to 1,684,000 units, driven by solid sales in Thailand and China. Operating income was up 24.9 billion yen year-on-year to 453.7 billion yen, mostly as a result of marketing efforts such as increased vehicle sales. In other regions, overall vehicle sales were down 65,000 units year-on-year to 1,327,000 units due to declined vehicle sales in the Near and Middle East. Operating income decreased by 28.5 billion yen year-on-year to 89.5 billion yen. This was largely due to depreciation of local currencies and an increase in raw material costs.
Next, let me explain our consolidated subsidiaries and equity method affiliates in China by using slide 9. Please note that fiscal year end of our companies in China is in December. Therefore, earnings of these companies reflects the earnings from January to December, whose numbers are reflected in Toyota's consolidated financial results for the fiscal year ended in March the following year. Retail sales in China increased by 184,000 units to 1,487,000 on the back of solid sales for both Toyota and Lexus models. Operating income of consolidated subsidiaries increased by 21.3 billion yen year-on-year to 150.6 billion yen. Equity and earnings of equity method affiliates were up 16 billion yen year-on-year to 104.9 billion yen. And both these numbers increased thanks to marketing efforts. In addition, we are steadily pursuing our activities in China, such as the recent release of EV under the Toyota brand announced at Shanghai Motor Show, as well as the establishment of a joint research institute with Tsinghua University. Next, please see slide 10 for the operating income of financial services. Operating income excluding swap valuation gains and losses for the fiscal year was up 58.3 billion yen year-on-year to 342.3 billion yen. This was mainly due to an increase in lending balance and a decrease in costs related to residual value losses. Next, please look at slide 11 on shareholder return. With regards to the year-end dividend on shares of common stock, we plan to make it 120 yen per share. And thus, the dividend on shares of common stock for the fiscal year will be 220 yen per share, including the interim dividend of 100 yen per share, and the payout ratio for the fiscal year will be 33.8%. We will try to pay dividends stably and sustainably. Next, please see slide 12. We plan to buy back up to 300 billion yen or 50 million shares of common stock as the year-end shareholder return. Since 249.9 billion yen worth of shares of common stock were already repurchased as shareholder return for the first half of the fiscal year, the maximum share repurchase for the fiscal year, which ended in March 2019, will be up to 549.9 billion yen or 86 million shares. As a result, together with the year-end dividend, the total return ratio will be a maximum of 63%, and we will flexibly repurchase our common shares considering our cash reserves and share prices. Now I'd like to move on to discuss the forecast for the current fiscal year ending March 2020. Consolidated vehicle sales are expected to be 9 million units, up 23,000 units year on year. We anticipate that vehicle sales will increase steadily in Asia and Europe. For your information, as described at the bottom of the slide, we anticipate that the retail vehicle sales will be 10.74 million units, up 137,000 units year on year. This is largely due to an increase in anticipated retail sales in China. Please see slide 15. We have assumed the foreign exchange rates to be 110 yen per dollar and 125 yen per euro. Based on this, our forecasts of consolidated financial performance are net revenue of 30 trillion yen, operating income of 2,550 billion yen, pre-tax income of 2,720 billion yen, and net income of 2,250 billion yen. Please note that the impact of unrealized gains and losses on securities are not reflected in the above forecasts. Now please see slide 16, which compares operating income forecasts for this fiscal year with the results of the previous year. Firstly, the negative effect of forex rates will be 170 billion yen. Second, we anticipate that cost reduction efforts will have a positive impact on operating income of 110 billion yen due to ongoing cost reduction activities, despite the anticipated increase in raw material costs continuing from the previous fiscal year. Thirdly, we estimate that the effects of marketing activities will be negative 20 billion yen and the effect of expenses will be negative 15 billion yen. As a consequence, excluding the overall impact of forex rates and swap valuation gains and losses, operating income is expected to be up 75 billion yen year on year. Please note that positive 177.5 billion of others reflects the changes in depreciation method from the declining balance method to the straight line method following the usage of equipment, which results in positive 150 billion yen year on year. We would appreciate your continued support and guidance. This concludes my presentation on the financial results of the fiscal year ending in March 2019.
それでは皆様からご質問を
Now, ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, we would like to open the floor for questions from you. If you have a question to ask, please raise your hand so that the microphone can be brought to you. Furthermore, I would like to receive questions as many participants as possible, so please allow me to ask you to restrict to 2 questions per person. The person in the front row at the farthest end of the room, please. GG News Agency, Ando is my name. My question, 2 questions addressed to Mr. Kobayashi, EVP. In terms of the overall assessment of the financial results for fiscal 2019 is my question. The competition with the non-automotive players could become even fiercer, so how do you assess the financial results? And for the first time, the net revenue exceeded 30 trillion yen, so if you could include that in your assessment, how you feel about that. Secondly, Toyota or Mr. Kobayashi has been taking the lead in taking initiatives to improve cost. Mr. Kobayashi, you have been saying that you're going to make Toyota more muscular in terms of its constitution. How far have you made progress to date? And in terms of the positive profit contributing effect of a cost improvement, for the full year basis, you talked about 110 billion yen for March 2020. Is this the appropriate level, or do you need to further take initiatives to improve cost? First of all, in terms of my own assessment of the financial results, earlier I cited I only give negative assessment, and I gave the impression that nobody is working hard enough, and therefore I think I need to give you a more elaborate or detailed answer. In terms of the volume of activities or the size, that is reflected in volume, and therefore the volume is important reflecting the physique of the company. But as a result, the net revenue reached 30 trillion yen. But in terms of my evaluation of that, compared with the previous year, the market share increased by 0.1 percentage point, which shows the outcome and the result of customers supporting us, as well as each employee is making maximum efforts. So probably the net revenue has been quite satisfactory. The problem can be found in cost. We have been taking initiatives in various ways, and that has been well established. For example, the incentives in North America, starting in the fourth quarter, so after third quarter, but into the fourth quarter, it has turned into the negative increase, which means incentives are now used more intelligently or more efficiently than in the past. But incentives is required when you're faced with competition. So what are the major competitors facing our model? Who are we competing against? And what sort of activities we do would make customers happier? So analyzing the situation in greater detail in terms of regions and customers and competitors, we were able to use incentives and allocate incentives more smartly. But what is important is if you use more incentives, you face problem. That is to say that greater incentive depreciates the value of the product itself, and therefore, without incentives, we need to provide customers with the new products, because that paves the way for the next model or next purchase. That is to say, when in the used car market, in the form of residual values, the appropriate usage of incentives or lower incentives seems to be more effective. And in addition to that, we were faced with higher prices, especially steel materials, among others. So through cost reduction efforts, we've been able to offset that, but we attained the cost reduction improvement of 300 billion. I earlier cited a target of 600 billion. We didn't quite reach that level. This time, the cost reduction produced or saved 250 billion, because they connected the case, and in order to enhance the performance of a product, we had to spend some money for investing in development, and the cost improvement was not able to fully offset that. However, next year we would like to bring that up to 400 billion yen or 500 billion yen. All 370,000 employees work giving their maximum efforts. Probably we can generate 400 billion yen in terms of cost reduction benefits. I think we should be able to achieve that. And in some quarters I hear, well, let me explain what sort of concrete activities we have been engaged in terms of cost reduction. We do not use the term cost cutting or cost cut, because let me explain the reason why. The employees, the activities of 370,000 employees represent the cost. And using that cost, we can generate the value of the vehicles, and that's the concept of Toyota. And that's why the President Toyota constantly said that we need to regain our ability to refine cost. By all employees refining cost, we'll be able to offer better cars at better prices, and therefore we have been accelerating those initiatives since last year. Take, for instance, in terms of research and development efforts, we use prototypes for evaluating or assessing the new model to be developed, but we have been taking more initiatives. I mean, engineers want to assess and evaluate many items at the same time. If you line up individual items individually, we don't have to make many prototypes at once. And air conditioning equipment may not be the item to be assessed, but unless you incorporate that, you won't be able to analyze the stiffness or rigidity of the vehicle. So rather than using air conditioner, probably we can simply compare the rigidity, for example. So through those new means, we've been able to reduce the research and development and those prototyping costs to 1/2 of what it used to be. And working with the suppliers, rather than asking for general reduction in cost, we try to work together thinking new ways of materials or making cars or coming up with new designs. Of course, this takes longer time, but we began to do that. Working together and by generating new ideas each other, the things that employees of a TMC simply cannot think of have been generated by supplier employees. So based upon win-win relationship, we were able to reduce the cost, including the prices of purchased parts, for example. And this may not be something that I should be publicly commenting on, but those people, the clerical employees, and we use a lot of stationaries and other clerical equipment, we find a lot of waste in those areas. I'm sure you may be using many pencils, but you only use one pencil at a time. You only need one pencil. So by analyzing those, we were able to reduce the actual cost. And we now have the mentality well set in that we need to work together in finding new ways of reducing cost. It's not that if you give instructions, the outcome can be obtained, but spending enough time, and once 370,000 people do have full ownership of taking initiatives for cost reduction, I'm sure we'll be able to come up with better cars. And at the same time, we'll be able to come up with a product that customers are willing to pay. Did I answer your question?
はい、よろしいでしょうか。
Yes, are you satisfied?
はい、よろしいでしょうか。では次の質問いかがでしょうか。
Going on to the next question then,
こち
please.
らの前から2番目の
Yes, the person, the second row from the front, please. My name is Oshikiri from Nikkei. My first question is about the United States. Earlier, Vice President Kobayashi said that in about 2020 that you want to bring up to peak your profit margin for each destination, and you only know about the operating income for each region, but I think this is improving. So through reforms, well, perhaps you may not be able to bring it up to the peak, but how is your reforms proceeding, and what's your feeling about the achievement of those goals? The second question is about China. For the first time, you've disclosed the Chinese operations and the operating income for that. And due to the Nexus price reduction last year, I think that had an effect. But you may be suffering from a backlash of the price reduction. And of course, the additional tariffs imposed by the United States may reduce the economic growth. So how do you view the future? And I believe that against the annual target of 1.6 million vehicle sales a year, do you think you can achieve it? For the United States, 8%. Our operating margin is about 8%. So we want to bring it up to that level in all regions, but we are still at a snail's pace, working at a snail's pace. However, our colleagues in the United States are really taking this goal seriously. They have begun to take this goal seriously. And last year, I myself and also President Toyota went to the United States to listen firsthand to what they had to say and to see and feel the situation. And we're seeing signs of improvement. One is about the incentive, as I said, but that's not the only reason. For example, improving efforts to improve the productivity of the plants, and also to identify all of the cost items and assign each to a chief, a team head, in order to reduce it. And we also relocated our headquarters to Texas, and now we were all dispersed across the country, and so there was a doubling of accounts. There's some redundancy of accounting, but we're now able to reduce that redundancy in accounting. And of course, as you know, the SUV truck ratio is increasing. Highlander has also been launched, and so the high margin products which the customers desire are actually becoming a majority of our lineup. So I have not actually lowered the flag yet, and by the fiscal year 2021, we want to bring the margin up to about 8%. We are making that effort. As for China, as you know, Well, we're still one lap behind when it comes to China. Other companies are selling maybe 4 million or 2 million in China. And thanks to our customers, we were able to achieve 1.47 million, but this is partly due to the reduction in tariffs. And another point is the coastal areas and the inland areas. The customers' demand differ in these two regions, especially in the inland areas. The cars are not prevalent yet. Therefore, we're taking some measures, countermeasures, to launch more affordable, smaller, compact cars in order to gain widespread acceptance. And the Chinese market is a 28 million market. And I saw it in the newspaper, the U.S. and Chinese trade friction is increasing, but China has a population of 1.3 billion people. So although there may be some twists and turns, I believe that the number of customers will increase, shall increase. And we will develop to those customers, including hybrid products, and overcome the national restrictions and regulations, and provide fine-tuned services to the customers so that we can increase our sales. But it will be very difficult to increase the sales overnight. We need steadfast and step-by-step improvements in China.
Thank you very much. I would like to entertain the next question. The person in the central row, maybe third row from the front row, please. The person with the hand up. Kigawa of Toyo Keizai. I have two major questions. In relation to purchasing and procurement, the cost reduction is going to be continued in the new fiscal year as well. But looking at individual companies within Toyota Group, looking at the financial results of the fiscal year just ended or the year beginning, the cost reduction seems to be getting more and more, and suppliers are spending more time in relation more money in relation to case. So while we talk about working together to improve costs, but at the same time, the suppliers in the Toyota Group seems to be suffering a great deal. I mean, trying to enhance competitiveness together must be the basic premise, but in terms of your procurement strategy going forward, could you share with us your view? Even if the company does not belong to Toyota Group, are you willing to procure from outside of the group? I do understand that that policy has been conveyed as well to a certain extent. So while trying to enhance competitiveness, how are you foresee some change in the procurement, both inside the group and outside the group? Secondly, you are the top shareholder of Akebono Brake Company, and it is now restructuring and trying to change the business. And as a company, it issued a comment that you are going to work together with Akebono to improve the production. If you are requested to inject capital, are you willing to do that? Of course, if you cannot purchase those brake equipment or components from Akebono, you will face a serious difficulty, not just Toyota, but other companies as well. So as far as you're concerned, as a single company, what is your attitude or stance vis-a-vis Akebono? Well, I should be responding to that question, but the person who used to be in charge of procurement is with me, so I'd like to ask Mr. Shiroyanagi to answer that question. As you mentioned, before the 10-day holiday period, the group companies announced their financial results, and many companies announced increased revenue but decreased profit. And I realized that the situations and environment must be very tough. The factors are similar to ours, skyrocketing raw materials prices, or the increase in R&D development, or keeping at least at the same level the R&D expenses for advanced technological areas. And therefore, in order to enhance our readiness for case, together with us, those group companies are making advanced investment for advanced technological field, and that's the impression I received by looking at the financial results announcement. As far as we are concerned, we strongly believe that we need to work together to enhance competitiveness together. Different companies do have different difficulties. Some companies do say that parts for Toyota is very difficult to make, and we hear about that. And for those standards are concerned, we are going to revise those wherever it possible, not leaving anything unattempted. And also, what should be the cost? How should we achieve the cost that is acceptable to customers from the very early stage of the development and design? We will work together to come up the appropriate level of cost. So we will exercise TPS together with the suppliers as well. And we really must enhance and hone our competitiveness, and that's the awareness shared by those group companies and ourselves. And if I may add a further comment, the quality standards, and it seems that Toyota has the solid quality standards, and if anything, it is even added and made even more stringent. And we are now going to put that under the wholesale review, looking at the current way of making things and materials available now. We are going to re-examine those quality standards as well. If a certain component is added or combined with other components, we say that there should be no noises, so to speak. If those components are clash to others or dent to others, there should not be any noise. But in certain cases, if you bolt them together, such and very detailed standards may not be necessary. So these are the detailed areas that we are reviewing right now in terms of our standard. Toyota has a system overall, that is to say, in the context of overall things, we consider whether this needs to be really necessary, whether the handle should be located there or not. So these are some of the detailed aspects that are placed under the strict scrutiny, and this should be quite useful for suppliers as well. As far as Akebono is concerned, we have not received any request for capital injection, and therefore we have not considered at all. But as you pointed out in your question, the brake business, for Akebono to be able to run a viable brake business, to enhance their productivity and enhance their competitiveness, we are willing to work closely together in every aspect of that.
Next question, please.
では一番奥の一番前の
So the person at the very front of the back section. Yes. My name is Tanigawa of Kawatsu. Regarding next fiscal year, your vehicle sales will increase, but the net revenue will be reduced by 225 billion. So I guess that the exchange rate effect would be about 180 billion. So the increase in sales volume and the reduction in net revenue means that you'll be shifting to low-priced cars. Is that the idea? Well, this year was the reverse. For example, in Europe, we sold a lot of hybrids. And they are, of course, high-margin, high-priced products. So our net revenue increased despite the not-so-high increase in vehicle sales. So it all depends on the model. In Japan, the Crown is selling well. So our finances are pretty good. So it's actually an effect of the model mix that led to that. So there's no fundamental, what's wrong or what's right or what's wrong. Corolla Sports, of course, is included.
では次のご質問いかがでしょうか。
Next question,
では前
please.
から2番目の方、お
That
願
person,
いいたし
second
ます。
from the front.
テレビ東京の滝田です。
Takita of TV Tokyo.
一点お伺いしたい
One
のは
question.
これはどちらがいいんですかね。
To whom should I address it? Maybe Mr. Shiro
為
Yanagi?
替なんですけれども
It relates to foreign exchange rates.
2020年3月期で
For March 2020,
として
the foreign currency is expected to be a negative factor to reduce the profit. The yen dollar 110 and the euro 125. At this point, the dollar is 109. and euro is 123 yen vis-a-vis 1 euro. So you are expecting yen appreciation, and what is the risk scenario? What is the impact of such risk scenario of an even stronger yen? And in relation to that, you are going to accelerate the business activities in emerging countries. And I think when it comes to the emerging country currencies, it seems that the forex loss seems to have increased somewhat. What are the specific impacts suffered in specific countries? Could you share that information with us? In which country did you have greater currency loss? As you pointed out, as far as forex is concerned, we produce 3 million units in Japan. We export some vehicles to foreign markets, so we are impacted by currency movements. You talked about the dollar, euro. Currently, the yen has strengthened, as you pointed out. And the currency assumption is 110 and 125. These are not forecast-based, but basically it is the prevailing exchange rate at the end of March, and we lower that in the unit of 5 yen. So that's the manner in which we make the currency assumption. So if the prevailing rate is different, that affects the actual outcome. In terms of emerging country currencies, the impact therein for the current fiscal year, in terms of other currencies, we had the impact of 110 billion yen. The major ones include Aussie dollar, yen appreciated vis-a-vis Aussie dollar, and CAN dollar, yen also appreciated against the Canadian dollar, and yen appreciated against GBP, and also yen appreciated vis-a-vis Russian ruble. So appreciation of the yen against those currencies subtracted from the profit.
それでは次のご質問いかがで
Are
し
you
ょうか。
satisfied? So maybe move on to the next
では
question.
前から3番目の方
The
お
third
願いいた
person
し
from
ま
the
す。
front.
Sean McLean from the Wall Street Journal. I was wondering if you could explain this new stock compensation plan that you plan to send to the board. Explain what the purpose is. It looks like you're reducing the cash compensation for directors, but increasing stock compensation. Will that increase overall compensation for board directors, and what's the intention here?
今の英語の質問を日本語に訳させていただきます。新たに今考えられております株式による報酬に関してお考えをお聞かせいただけますでしょうか。現金の部分の報酬をこれは役員に関してですけれども減らして株式による報酬を増やされていらっしゃるという、これは全体の報酬額としては総額で増えるんでしょうか。そしてどういう考え方に基づいてこの株式部分というのを増やしになることになさるんでしょうか。
ですね、これはですね、特に取締役といいますか、役員以上ですね。役員以上というのはやっぱ経営をこう携わりますから、今は現金、ほとんど現金で渡しています。
At this moment, the remuneration is mostly in cash. And by paying that in shares, they can be engaged in longer-term strategic activities. And based upon that, we have decided to pay a certain amount of remuneration in equities, but the aggregate total amount will not change. So in terms of the breakdown, we are going to pay a part of the total compensation in shares. Did I answer your question?
それではまだご質問が終わりかと存じますが、
I
予
believe
定の時
there
間
may be
も
more
近づいて
questions,
まいり
but
ましたの
since
で、
it's
あと
close to the
お一方
closing
お
time,
方
perhaps we can
から
entertain
ご質
one
問
or
いただい
two
と存じますが、
additional questions.
よろしいでしょうか。
Yes?
はい。ではご質問いかがでしょうか。
So, any
はい、
further
今手を挙
questions?
げていらっしゃる女性の方。
Yes, the lady.
Naomi Tajitsu from
あ、
Reuters.
はい、ごめんなさい。
すいません、英語でお願いします。すいません。I was wondering, you mentioned that you wanted to increase your operating margins in North America to around 8% in the next year or so. That sounds very ambitious given that operating margins are around the 1% level at the moment. Can you give some specific examples of how you're planning to achieve this? Thank you.
ロイターズの田実直美と申します。で、先ほど北米の営業利益率向こう1年あるいは2年ぐらいで 8% まで引き上げたいと思っているとおっしゃったんですけれども、かなり野心的なターゲットだと言えるのではないでしょうか。現在この営業利益率は確か 1% ちょっとぐらいだと思いますので、具体的にどのような措置を通じて このレベルを達成なさるのかお聞かせいただけますでしょうか。
それは先ほども申し上げました。まずはですね。
As I said earlier, first of all,
北米はご存知
in
のよ
North
うに
America, as you know,
SUV とトラック比率が上がってるんです。
the proportion of SUV and trucks is increasing. Corolla, Camry, we do sell such sedans, but other companies are selling more trucks because of the higher margin, price margin on trucks, as you know, because they are larger vehicles. So that would be one major change that we will institute. As for internal efforts, as I said earlier, of course, regarding our sales and marketing costs, we want to including various propaganda, etc. We want to utilize our sales and marketing costs more effectively and efficiently. And other is including the plant productivity. We want to reduce costs overall. Currently, our operating margin is about 2%. So can you really increase it by 6% in such a short time period? I guess was the gist of your question. I don't have confidence, but I want to continue to argue that message because somebody has to continue to speak out that message. Otherwise, the message will be lost. However, our North American top officials we are always constant in communication with them. So, and we're always working toward that goal, with that goal in mind. So I do hope that you can expect more from us. Thank you.
Thank you for giving this opportunity. Takahashi of Bloomberg, and my question relates to the issuance of a corporate bond. By the end of May, for the first time in 2 years, I received information that you are going to issue corporate debt. What is the timing of that? What's the maturity of that? And also the size of the issuance. None of those are decided. We have not yet decided on those. And as far as I'm concerned, when I joined the company, I was in the accounting department, and we have been taking the policy that you must borrow when the rates are very low. And of course, taking loan directly is one avenue, but by having your own corporate debt in the market, your faces to be known in market to increase our value, that's not our objective. I mean, when it comes to funding, including refinancing, we would like to procure when the rates are very favorable, and we have been requesting that to Mr. Shiroyana, and probably that sort of idea or information must have been leaked. So whenever the rates are low, we would like to fund ourselves. It's not been decided yet.
Maybe one more? Yes, the person with their hand up with his or her hand up. Nakajima from Kyodo News. Regarding your R&D expenses, in the 2020 March, I think it will be a record high of 1.1 trillion. And I believe that in a vis-a-vis case, you'll be required to invest more in R&D. But major IT companies are investing more into case. Do you think that Toyota's rate of R&D expenditure is enough? And how do you intend to respond to the ever increasing competition? Well, expenses, including R&D expenses, the more you expend, the more it will apply lower pressure on your profits, making our prices higher. That's why we need to reduce costs. But I think this is a matter of prioritization. Connected case, such requirements account for about maybe a little less than 40% of our R&D costs, and we will most likely increase that to about 50% of R&D in the not-too-distant future. But when it comes to the basic performance and functionalities of the car, I think the automotive industry is still immature. As President Toyoda says, we must make ever better cars. And for that, the elementary technologies and fundamental research, basic research is very important. So we need to strike that good balance. So there's never an ideal proportional ratio of R&D costs that we can put into case. Are you satisfied? Thank you. Since it is time, then we would like to conclude the first session. Session 2 will resume at 10 past 2 after a 10-minute break. Thank you.